Out here, under the wide Texas sky, a fortune wasn't just made, it was drilled, pumped, and bled from the earth itself. The 1970s. For the Hunt family, oil wasn't just a business, it was a birthright. They were Texas Titans, swimming in a sea of black gold. But as the sun set on the decade, their gaze shifted. A new obsession was dawning, one that shimmered with a pale, intoxicating light. They had struck black gold, but silver would become their obsession. This is the story of how two brothers, Nelson Bunker Hunt and William Herbert Hunt, tried to buy the world and almost broke America in the process. Inside a Dallas skyscraper, far from the dusty oil fields, the world looked different. The numbers on the page told a grim story. Inflation was a cancer, eating away at the dollar's value. News reports flickered across the television, each one a nail in the coffin of economic stability. For men like the Hunts, who thought in terms of real, tangible assets, paper money was becoming a joke. The government had already made it illegal for private citizens to hoard gold back in '33. So, where could a billionaire park his fortune? They found their answer in the shadows. The poor man's gold, silver. It was undervalued, overlooked, and waiting for someone with enough cash and audacity to see its true potential. The plan was simple, brutal, and breathtaking in its scale. They didn't just start buying silver, they launched an all-out assault on the market. Teletype machines clattered non-stop, spitting out buy orders that would make a nation blush. On the trading floors of New York and Chicago, brokers screamed themselves hoarse, executing the Hunts' relentless campaign. While the world saw chaos, the brothers saw opportunity. In their minds, they weren't just speculating. They were saving themselves from a collapsing financial system. Every contract signed, every ounce acquired, was a brick in their new financial fortress. They didn't just buy silver, they devoured it. The effect was immediate and seismic. The price of silver, which had idled for years, suddenly went vertical. Charts on trading floors looked like rocket launches. News anchors with wide eyes and panicked voices struggled to explain the unprecedented surge. While financial experts sounded alarms, some industries celebrated. Companies like Kodak and Tiffany & Co., which relied on silver for their products, watched in horror as their costs exploded. For the Hunts, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Every ounce they bought pushed the price higher, which in turn made their existing holdings more valuable, fueling their ambition to buy even more. Greed fed on itself, growing with every tick of the market. This wasn't just a paper fortune. The Hunts wanted the physical metal. All of it. They started taking delivery, and the scale of the operation was staggering. In a move straight out of a Bond film, they chartered a fleet of Boeing 707s. Under the cover of darkness, these jets were loaded, not with passengers but with pallets of solid silver bars. Their destination? Secret, high-security vaults nestled deep in the Swiss Alps. As the massive steel doors swung shut, sealing away tons of glittering metal, the brothers weren't just storing an asset. They were taking a significant portion of the world's silver supply off the market, creating a shortage they could control. The Hunt brothers' silver empire was no longer a secret. It was a global phenomenon. Newspapers from Tokyo to London splashed their story across the front pages. The ripple effects were felt everywhere. In India and Mexico, people began melting down family heirlooms and silver jewelry to cash in on the soaring prices. Central banks around the world were forced to reevaluate their own reserves. At the peak of their power, it's estimated that Nelson and Herbert Hunt, along with their partners, controlled a staggering 1/3 of the entire world's private silver supply. They had more silver than most governments. They weren't just playing the market anymore, they were the market. Back in America, the game was changing. In the hushed, smoke-filled backrooms of Wall Street and Washington, D.C., powerful figures started to whisper. Bankers, brokers, and politicians realized the Hunts' gambit wasn't just a bold investment. It was a direct threat to the stability of the entire financial system. If they could corner silver, what was next? The U.S. Treasury began monitoring the situation with growing alarm. a split-screen reality emerged. On one side, the chaotic, frantic energy of the trading floors. On the other, the opulent, isolated luxury of the Hunt's Texas life, seemingly immune to the panic they were creating. The system was beginning to feel the strain, and then the tide turned. Slowly at first, then all at once. The economic conditions that had fueled the Hunt's paranoia began to shift. The Federal Reserve, under a new chairman, jacked up interest rates to combat inflation, making it incredibly expensive to borrow money. For the Hunts, who had financed much of their silver hoard with massive loans, this was a critical blow. Then came the regulators. Seeing the danger, the commodity exchange, COMEX, suddenly changed the rules of the game. They implemented Silver Rule 7, which restricted trades to liquidation only and dramatically raised margin requirements. The easy credit dried up, the market turned, and it turned fast. The day of reckoning came on March 27, 1980, a date that would go down in financial history as Silver Thursday. The rule changes triggered a cascade of margin calls the Hunts couldn't meet. They needed to sell, but with the new rules, buyers had vanished. Panic erupted. The price of silver, which had peaked near $50 an ounce just months before, collapsed. In a single day, it plummeted to around $10. The bubble didn't just leak, it burst with catastrophic force. Billions of dollars in paper wealth evaporated in a matter of hours. The dream of a silver empire was consumed in a firestorm of financial ruin. The fall was as swift and dramatic as the rise. The Texas Titans, who had once held the world's financial system hostage, were brought to their knees. The aftermath was a slow, painful procession through courtrooms and congressional hearings. They faced mountains of debt, lawsuits, and federal investigations. Foreclosure signs went up on properties that were once symbols of their immense wealth. The once bustling ranches fell silent. The story of the Hunt brothers became a cautionary tale, a modern Greek tragedy played out on the world's financial stage. They tried to own the system, to bend it to their will, and in the end, the system struck back. When giants fall, everyone feels the tremor. On March 27, 1980, a day forever etched in financial history as Silver Thursday, the tremors were seismic. The colossal silver empire built by the Hunt brothers didn't just crack, it imploded. Panic erupted on trading floors across the globe. Shouts and screams echoed where confident orders once reigned. TV screens flickered with images of chaos, broadcasting the meltdown live into homes and offices. The Hunts' bet had gone catastrophically wrong, and they were dragging the entire financial system down with them. The market had called their bluff, and the world held its breath, staring into the abyss of a potential global collapse. The brothers had once dreamed of owning all the silver in the world. Now, all they owned was the world's largest private debt. In the late-night hours, under the stark fluorescent lights of Washington, D.C. and New York, the architects of the financial system scrambled to avert a catastrophe. The Federal Reserve, Wall Street's biggest banks, and government officials knew this was more than just one family's ruin. It was a contagion threatening to infect every corner of the economy. They were staring at a chain reaction of defaults that could topple banks and brokerages like dominoes. In a series of tense, smoke-filled meetings, an unprecedented bailout was pieced together. It was a billion-dollar rescue package designed not to save the Hunts, but to save the system from them. To prevent another Silver Thursday, the rules of the game had to be rewritten overnight, forever changing the landscape of commodity trading. So, how did it all go so wrong? The answer lies in a single, powerful, and dangerous word: leverage. The Hunt brothers didn't just use their own fortune, they borrowed, and they borrowed heavily. They used what's called margin, essentially a down payment, to buy massive amounts of silver futures contracts. For a while, it was a brilliant strategy. As the price of silver soared, their paper profits multiplied astronomically. But leverage is a double-edged sword. When the price of silver began to fall, their brokers demanded more money to cover the potential losses, a dreaded margin call. The Hunts had no more cash. The sell-off began, turning into an avalanche. Their mountain of silver became a mountain of debt, a stark lesson that when you borrow to buy the world, the debt remains long after the dream has vanished. The saga of the Hunt brothers is not just a historical footnote. It's a timeless, cautionary tale. Its echoes reverberate through every major financial crisis that has followed. Look at the collapse of Enron, built on a foundation of accounting tricks. Look at the 2008 financial crisis fueled by complex derivatives and reckless lending. Look at the recent crypto crashes, where digital fortunes vanished in the blink of an eye. The names, the assets, the technologies all change, but the core narrative remains hauntingly familiar. It is the story of hubris, the deadly belief that one is smarter than the market, that the rules of gravity don't apply. It's the ancient sin of believing you can outsmart money itself, a lesson that every generation, it seems, must learn the hard way. In the end, the Texas sun still rises over the vast ranch lands the Hunts once called their kingdom. The oil wells that funded their initial fortune stand as silent monuments. Their dream of cornering the silver market wasn't just a failed business venture. It was a profound misunderstanding of wealth itself. They tried to conquer the market with power and force, attempting to bend it to their will. But true markets are not commanded. They are respected. They reward patience, discipline, and value, not brute ambition. The Hunts learned this lesson at a cost of billions, but the wisdom it offers is priceless. Greed is, and always will be, the most expensive commodity of all. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world.